There's a level of strength that makes people uncomfortable. Not the kind of strength you see in the gym, where someone lifts heavy weights and everyone applauds. Not the kind of strength you see in motivational videos, where someone gives a passionate speech and everyone feels inspired for about 20 minutes. This is a different kind of strength. A kind that makes people step back. A kind that makes them avoid eye contact. A kind that creates a feeling they can't quite name, somewhere between respect and fear. You've seen it before. That person who doesn't react when everyone else panics. Who stays silent when everyone else is screaming for attention. Who makes decisions that seem cruel until you realize they were necessary. Who carries burdens that would break most people and never complains, never asks for help, never shows the weight. And when you see someone operating at that level, something in you recognizes it. Your body tenses. Your mind goes quiet. Because you're in the presence of something that shouldn't exist in the modern world. Someone who has transformed themselves into a weapon not just of physical capability but of absolute mental control. 400 years ago, a man stood on the shore of Gonryu Island, deliberately late for a duel to the death. Miyamoto Musashi had carved a wooden sword from an oar on the boat ride over. His opponent, Sasaki Kojiro, was already there, furious, his legendary 3-foot-long blade drawn and ready. Kojiro was considered the greatest swordsman in Japan. He had a technique called the swallow's reversal that no one had ever successfully defended against. He had killed dozens of men. He had trained his entire life for perfection in the art of the blade. And Musashi showed up late, with a piece of wood, wearing a smile that people who witnessed it said looked like death itself. What happened next lasted less than 30 seconds. Musashi killed Kojiro with a single strike to the head, turned around, and walked away without looking back at the body. No celebration. No acknowledgement. No emotion. He had ended the life of Japan's greatest swordsman the way you would swat a fly. Not because he was cruel. Not because he was arrogant. But because he had reached a level of strength so far beyond normal human experience that killing a master warrior was simply another task to complete. You're watching this video because some part of you wants that kind of strength. Not to hurt people. Not to dominate others. But to be unbreakable. To face whatever life throws at you and not just survive but remain completely composed. To have people look at you and wonder how you're so calm when everything is chaos. How you're so certain when everyone else is confused. How you're so capable when everyone else is overwhelmed. The problem is that every video you watch, every book you read, every program you try teaches you surface-level strength. They teach you to be tough. They teach you to push through. They teach you to ignore pain and keep going. And all of that is fine for beginners. But it's not real strength. Real strength, the kind that Musashi embodied, the kind that genuinely scares people when they encounter it, is something completely different. It's not about forcing yourself to endure. It's about transforming yourself into someone for whom endurance is automatic. It's not about controlling your emotions. It's about reconstructing your nervous system so that you don't have destructive emotions to control in the first place. Before I show you exactly how Musashi built this level of strength, and more importantly, the specific practices you can use starting today to begin your own transformation, I need you to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button right now. Not later. Not after you see if this is worth it. Because what I'm about to share is not motivational content. It's not going to make you feel pumped up. It's going to show you the uncomfortable truth about what real strength requires. And I need you to drop a comment right now telling me this. What situation in your life right now is testing your strength? Where are you being pushed to your limit? It could be a difficult relationship, an overwhelming career challenge, a health crisis, financial pressure, or something else entirely. Write it down. Because by the end of this video, you're going to see that situation completely differently. You're going to understand why it's not actually testing your strength. It's building your strength. But only if you know how to use it correctly. Let's begin. The first thing you need to understand about real strength is that it has nothing to do with toughness. Toughness is what weak people develop to pretend they're strong. Toughness is armor. It's a shell you build around yourself to protect the fragile person inside. It's loud. It's defensive. It's always one bad day away from cracking. Real strength is not armor. Real strength is bone density. It's structural. It's integrated so deeply into who you are that there's nothing to crack because there's no separation between the protection and the person. Musashi understood this distinction better than anyone in history. When he was young, he was tough. He was aggressive. He was quick to anger, quick to fight, quick to prove himself. He won his first duel at age 13 by beating a grown man to death with a stick. And for years after that, he was exactly what you'd expect. A violent young warrior with something to prove. But somewhere between his 20th duel and his 60th, something changed. The toughness burned away. The aggression dissolved. What remained was something that opponents found far more terrifying than anger. They found absolute calm. Here's what happened in Musashi's mind during those years that transformed him from tough to truly strong. He realized that every emotional reaction he had was a weakness his opponent could exploit. Every moment of anger gave information about what bothered him. Every moment of fear revealed what he was trying to protect. Every moment of pride created an opening that a skilled fighter could use to destroy him. So he began the most brutal training program imaginable. Not training his body. Training his mind. He would sit in meditation for hours, visualizing every possible way he could die in combat. Not to scare himself. To desensitize himself. He would deliberately put himself in situations that triggered fear, anger, or anxiety and then refuse to react. Not suppress the reaction. Eliminate the trigger entirely. He trained his nervous system the way other warriors trained their sword technique. Through repetition, through exposure, through thousands of hours of deliberate practice until his default state was not calmness that he had to maintain but calmness that simply was. This is the first principle of scary strength that nobody teaches. You cannot build real strength by fighting your emotions. You build real strength by making your emotions irrelevant. Most people spend their entire lives in a war with themselves. They feel fear and they try to be brave. They feel anger and they try to be calm. They feel anxiety and they try to be confident. And this internal war exhausts them. It drains their energy. It splits their focus. It makes them weak precisely because they're spending so much effort trying to be strong. Musashi discovered that the solution was not better control. The solution was eliminating the need for control entirely. How? By changing what his nervous system perceived as threatening. Most people are afraid of death, failure, humiliation, loss. These fears make sense. They're hardwired into human biology. But they're also optional. Not in the sense that you can choose not to feel them, but in the sense that you can train your nervous system to recategorize them from threats into neutral information. Let me give you a modern example that will make this clear. There's a surgeon I know who operates on the most difficult cases. Brain tumors. Aneurysms. Procedures where one wrong move means the patient dies on the table. And in the operating room, she is the calmest person there. Not because she's pretending to be calm. Not because she's forcing herself to stay composed. But because her nervous system does not categorize the surgery as a threat. She has done it so many times, visualized so many scenarios, trained so thoroughly that her brain processes a life or death surgery the same way your brain processes making coffee. It's just a series of steps to execute. There's no emotional charge. No anxiety. No fear. She walks into the operating room the same way you walk into your kitchen. And that's not toughness. That's strength. That's a nervous system that has been restructured through deliberate practice to not trigger stress responses for situations that used to feel threatening. Now here's where this gets practical for you. Whatever situation you're facing right now that feels overwhelming, that feels like it's testing your limits, that makes you anxious or afraid or angry, your problem is not the situation itself. Your problem is that your nervous system is categorizing that situation as a threat when it should be categorizing it as information. And the gap between where you are and where you need to be is not more willpower. It's more exposure. This is what Musashi did obsessively. He did not avoid difficult situations. He sought them out specifically to train his nervous system to stop reacting to them. He would go days without food not because he had to, but because he wanted his body to learn that hunger was not an emergency. He would sleep outside in winter not because he enjoyed it, but because he wanted his nervous system to stop panicking about cold. He would put himself in social situations where he was disrespected or insulted and practice not reacting, not because he was weak, but because he was training himself to be invulnerable to the opinions of others. And right here, I need to pause and ask you something directly. Because I know thousands of people are watching this right now, and I genuinely want to understand your situation. What is the one thing that consistently triggers a stress response in you? What is the situation, the person, the challenge that makes you feel like you're not strong enough? Is it confrontation? Is it public speaking? Is it financial uncertainty? Is it physical pain? Is it the opinion of people you respect? Whatever it is, I want you to go to the comments right now and type this exact phrase. My nervous system treats this as a threat, and then finish that sentence honestly. Just one sentence. It could be, my nervous system treats confrontation as a threat. Or, my nervous system treats financial uncertainty as a threat. Or, my nervous system treats being alone as a threat. Whatever it is, write it down. Because here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to see that most people wrote something very similar to what you wrote. And you're going to realize that your nervous system is not broken. It's just untrained. Second, by naming the threat explicitly, you've already started the process of recategorizing it from something overwhelming to something you can work with. And third, I read every comment, and the most common nervous system triggers are going to become topics for future videos where I show you exactly how to retrain those responses. So do it now. Scroll down. Type, my nervous system treats this as a threat. Finish the sentence, and hit post. This is not just engagement. This is the first step of your transformation. I'll wait. Now let's talk about the second dimension of scary strength that Musashi mastered. Physical capability that goes beyond normal human limits. But not in the way you think. Musashi was not the biggest warrior. He was not the fastest. He probably was not even the most technically skilled in pure sword technique. What made him physically terrifying was something entirely different. He had eliminated all unnecessary movement. Most people, when they fight or compete or perform under pressure, waste enormous amounts of energy on movements that do nothing. Tension in muscles that should be relaxed. Preparation movements before the actual action. Recovery movements after. Compensations for poor technique. Adjustments for bad positioning. A trained fighter might use 100 units of energy to deliver a strike that requires 20 units of force. Musashi used 21 units. No waste. No excess. Pure efficiency. And that efficiency came from something that most modern training completely ignores. He trained in a state of exhaustion. Here's what Musashi understood that modern athletes and martial artists miss. When you train fresh, when you train rested, when you train with full energy, your body uses its strength to hide your weaknesses. You can compensate for poor technique with extra muscle. You can mask inefficiency with extra speed. You can cover bad positioning with extra effort. But when you train exhausted, when you train with no reserves left, all of those compensations disappear. Your body is forced to find the most efficient way to move because it has no extra energy to waste. And that's when real technique emerges. That's when your nervous system learns the difference between necessary and unnecessary. That's when you develop the kind of physical capability that looks supernatural because it's operating at a level of efficiency that most people never access. Musashi would train for 8 hours straight. Not 8 hours of varied practice. 8 hours of the same movement. And he would not stop when he got tired. He would continue until exhaustion forced his body to find the most efficient way to execute that movement. Then he would drill that efficient pattern thousands more times until it became permanent. Modern strength training has this exactly backwards. We train until fatigue, then we stop to prevent injury and allow recovery. And that makes sense for building muscle mass. That makes sense for preventing physical breakdown. But it does not build the kind of strength that scares people. Because scary strength is not about how much force you can generate when you're fresh. It's about how capable you remain when you have nothing left. It's about what you can still do when everyone else has collapsed. It's about being the person who is just as dangerous in the 10th round as they were in the first. And you cannot build that by stopping when you get tired. You build that by continuing when you get tired until your body learns to operate efficiently in that state. This is not advice to injure yourself. This is not advice to ignore your body's signals. This is advice to redefine what tired means. Most people think tired means stop. Musashi understood tired means now the real training begins. Let me show you how this applies to something you're probably doing right now. Let's say you're building a business. Most people work hard when they're motivated, when they're energized, when conditions are good. And when they hit a difficult period, when they're exhausted from months of effort, when nothing seems to be working, they slow down. They take breaks. They wait for motivation to return. And this guarantees they will never build scary strength. Because scary strength in business means you execute just as effectively in month 18 when you're burned out and demoralized as you did in month 1 when you were excited and energized. How do you build that? The same way Musashi did. You work specifically when you don't want to. You make decisions specifically when you're tired. You take action specifically when you feel like you have nothing left. Not occasionally. Systematically. Because that's when your mind is forced to find the most efficient decision-making processes. That's when you eliminate all the unnecessary complexity and anxiety and overthinking and just do what actually matters. That's when real capability gets built. The third dimension of scary strength is something Musashi called Heijoshin. It translates to ordinary mind or everyday mind, but that translation misses the depth of what it actually means. Heijoshin is the state where there is no difference between your mind in a life or death situation and your mind while drinking tea. It's not that you stay calm during crisis. It's that crisis and peace feel identical to your nervous system. This sounds impossible. It sounds inhuman. But Musashi demonstrated it repeatedly throughout his life. He would be in a duel where one mistake meant death, and witnesses said he looked bored. Not concentrated. Not intense. Bored. Because to him, fighting for his life was not special. It was just another activity. His nervous system did not spike. His attention did not narrow. His breathing did not change. He was the same in combat as he was in conversation. And that made him absolutely terrifying to face because there was no way to pressure him, no way to make him uncomfortable, no way to create an opening by triggering an emotional reaction. Here's how Heijoshin gets built, and it's simpler than you think but harder than you can imagine. You practice treating everything the same. Not by making important things less important. By making ordinary things equally important. Most people save their focus, their effort, their presence for big moments. They're casual with small things and intense with important things. And this creates massive inconsistency in their nervous system. Their brain learns that some situations require heightened attention and others don't. So when a truly important moment arrives, their nervous system spikes, and that spike destroys their performance. Musashi did the opposite. He treated every sword swing as if his life depended on it. Even in practice. Even alone. Even when it didn't matter. He made tea with the same presence he brought to duels. He walked with the same awareness he used in combat. He spoke with the same intentionality he used in strategy. And over years of this practice, his nervous system stopped differentiating between high stakes and low stakes. Everything became the same level of calm, focused presence. That's Heijoshin. That's the state where pressure becomes meaningless because you're always operating at your full capability regardless of external circumstances. Now let's talk about what this looks like in your life practically. Right now, you probably have routines, habits, or activities that you do on autopilot. Brushing your teeth. Commuting to work. Responding to emails. Making small talk. And because these things seem unimportant, you do them without presence, without intention, without full engagement. Then you have other activities that you consider important. Presentations. Difficult conversations. Major decisions. Job interviews. And for those, you try to bring your full focus and capability. But here's the problem. You cannot selectively access a state you do not practice regularly. If you spend 95% of your time on autopilot and then try to be fully present for the 5% that matters, you will fail. Your nervous system does not have the pattern. You're asking it to do something it has not been trained to do. The solution is treating everything with the same level of intentionality. Brush your teeth like your life depends on the quality of that action. Walk down the hallway like you're walking onto a stage. Answer a simple email like you're writing something that will be read by thousands of people. Not because these things are actually that important, but because you're training your nervous system to bring full presence to everything so that when something truly important happens, that presence is already your default state. This practice will feel absurd at first. You will feel like you're wasting energy on things that don't matter. You will feel ridiculous bringing intense focus to mundane activities. Good. That feeling is your ego resisting the transformation. That feeling is the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. And every time you practice full presence on something small, you're closing that gap. You're building the neural pathway that makes Heijoshin possible. You're training yourself to be someone who operates at the same level of capability whether you're alone in your room or standing in front of 10,000 people. That's scary strength. That's the kind of capability that makes people uncomfortable because they can't find your off switch. They can't find the circumstances that make you less than fully functional. You're the same everywhere, always. And that consistency is far more powerful than any peak performance. But here's where most people fail when they try to build this kind of strength. They treat it like a project. They decide to become mentally and physically strong. They work on it intensely for a few weeks or months. They see some progress, and then they return to their normal life thinking they've arrived. And all the strength they built dissolves within weeks. Because scary strength is not something you build and then have. Scary strength is something you are. It's an identity, not an achievement. Musashi never stopped training. Even in his 60s, after he had been undefeated for decades, after he was recognized as the greatest warrior in Japan, he still practiced every single day. Not because he was maintaining his skills. Because training was who he was. The practice was not separate from his life. The practice was his life. And until you make that same shift, until the practices that build strength become integrated into your identity rather than things you do to achieve a goal, you will never reach the level that genuinely scares people. Let me tell you about the moment this became real for me. Years ago, I decided I wanted to build the kind of mental strength I'm describing to you now. I read about Musashi. I studied his methods. I started practicing meditation, cold exposure, extended fasting, deliberate discomfort. And for about 6 months, I was incredibly disciplined. I saw massive progress. My ability to handle stress improved dramatically. My emotional regulation became much stronger. My physical capability increased significantly. I felt like I was becoming someone different. Then I stopped. Not consciously. Not as a decision. But I achieved what I thought was the goal, and gradually the practices faded. Within 3 months, I was back to baseline. All that progress evaporated. And I realized I had treated strength like a destination when it's actually a direction. I had tried to build something when I needed to become someone. So I started again. But this time, I did not set a goal. I did not aim for a specific outcome. I just committed to the practices as a permanent part of my identity. And that shift changed everything. Because now I'm not trying to be strong. I'm not working towards strength. I am someone who does these practices. The strength is just a side effect of the identity. That's the shift you need to make if you want scary strength. Stop trying to get strong. Start being someone who does what strong people do. Stop trying to develop mental toughness. Start being someone who exposes themselves to discomfort daily. Stop trying to build capability. Start being someone who practices their craft with full presence regardless of circumstances. The actions are the same. But the relationship to the actions is completely different. And that difference is everything. Because when you're trying to achieve something, you're always negotiating with yourself. You're always asking if today is the day you can skip. You're always looking for the finish line so you can stop. But when you are someone, there's no negotiation. There's no finish line. You're just doing what you do because that's who you are. That's how Musashi trained for decades without burning out. That's how he maintained scary strength into old age. He was not trying to be a warrior. He was a warrior. The training was not optional. It was definitional. So here's your path forward if you actually want this level of strength. First, identify the practices that build the specific dimensions of strength you need. If you want nervous system control, That means regular exposure to the things that trigger your stress response. If you want physical efficiency, that means training past fatigue to force your body to find optimal movement patterns. If you want Heijoshin, that means bringing full presence to every action regardless of perceived importance. Second, integrate these practices into your daily routine not as goals but as identity statements. You are someone who does these things. Period. Not someone who is trying to do them. Not someone who does them when motivated. Someone who does them because that's who you are. Third, accept that this is permanent. There is no graduation. There is no moment where you've achieved enough strength and you can stop. The practices continue forever because the identity continues forever. And fourth, understand that the discomfort never fully goes away. You just become someone for whom discomfort is normal. Someone who is as comfortable being uncomfortable as most people are being comfortable. This is not inspirational. This is not motivational. This is the truth about what it takes to reach the level of strength that makes people step back when they encounter you. Most people will watch this video, feel inspired for a few hours, maybe try some practices for a few days, and then return to who they were before. They want the results without the transformation. They want the strength without the identity shift. They want to add capability to who they are rather than becoming someone different entirely. And that's fine. Most people should not pursue scary strength. It requires sacrifices most people are not willing to make. It requires becoming someone most people are not willing to become. But if you're still here, if you've made it this far, then some part of you recognizes that you're not like most people. Some part of you knows you're capable of this transformation. Some part of you wants to become the kind of person who makes others uncomfortable with how unbreakable you are. 5 years from now, you will be someone. The only question is who. Will you be the person who watched this video, felt inspired, and did nothing? The person who knows about Musashi, talks about mental strength, but crumbles under real pressure? Or will you be the person who took this framework and actually implemented it? Who spent 5 years integrating these practices into their identity? Who became someone that their former self would not recognize? Someone who operates with a level of calm, capability, and consistency that makes others wonder what's different about you. Someone who has built the kind of strength that does not announce itself but creates an unmistakable presence that others feel even if they cannot name it. That person exists as a possibility right now. And every day, every choice, every practice either moves you toward becoming them or moves you away. There is no standing still. You're either building that person or abandoning them. Which one are you doing today? If you made it this far, then you're serious about this transformation. So I need you to do 3 things right now. First, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. Every video I create is designed to give you one more tool, one more practice, one more principle that moves you towards scary strength. You need those reminders. You need that consistent input. Second, hit that like button so this video reaches other people who are ready for this level of transformation. And third, comment right now with this exact statement. I am someone who, and then finish that sentence with the identity you're building. Not the goal you're trying to achieve. The person you're becoming. It could be, I am someone who trains past exhaustion to find efficiency. Or, I am someone who brings full presence to every action. Or, I am someone who exposes themselves to discomfort daily. Whatever it is, write it down as an identity statement, not a goal. Because when you declare your identity publicly, when you make it visible, when you commit not just to yourself but to this community, something shifts. The transformation becomes real. The path becomes clear. And a year from now, when you've become someone your current self barely recognizes, you'll come back to that comment and realize this was the moment everything changed. Do it now. Subscribe. Comment your identity. And let's build the kind of strength that scares people. Together. Thank you for your attention. Now go become someone unbreakable.